Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Goldberg, and I'll be the hearing officer today. I'm assigned to the Public Works Project Management section, assigned to the ESER bond program. So my job as a hearing officer is to hear both sides of the story and then make a recommendation to the interim director, Carla Short. It's up to the director's office and the director to make a final decision, and she is free to accept, reject, or change my recommendations. So what I try to do is provide as much information as I can within the limits of this format. I do ask when you speak that you state your name and spell it. I try to get the spelling and things correct so I can present that to the director. My written comments are very brief, and they're not certainly designed to be a comprehensive or a court reporter's recounting of what entirely was said. That's available on the video. It's just a couple of key points that I took away and thought were important to present to the director. So with that, the way we're going to present, we'll ask the department to start, make their presentation. We'll have the appellant speak, and then at that point, we'll open up to the public. In theory, we're supposed to limit these to 3 minutes. You know, my thought is if you really have something to say, and we can go a little bit beyond that, but I ask you to be respectful of the time, not only for yourself, but the other people that are here and spending their evening with us. So I want to first thank Cerise Waiters, our clerk, for coordinating this. And with that, I'll call to start item number 2 on the agenda, which is public comment. So if there's anyone that wishes to speak on any item that is not on the agenda, we'll give you that opportunity. So if there's any public comment, please raise your hand and you'll have that opportunity to speak. Seeing none, Cerise, do you see any?
Yes, we have a hand, EM. I'm not sure the last name, Kakajian. I'm not sure. I will allow to talk.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, could you say it again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're very faint, but we can hear you a little bit.
Go ahead and speak if you'd like to. This is on items not on the agenda, something entirely outside the agenda items. But if you have something to say, please go forward.
Yes, thank you. My question is, how is the city proposing to handle emergency permits for trees that have been uprooted or are otherwise destroyed and not salvageable, so that the trees can be replaced at the expense of the homeowners?
Okay.
I'm sorry, with respect to the storm that we just had?
Correct. I don't know. I mean, technically this is public comment. We're just supposed to listen, but I don't know. Susan, can you answer just in case there's others that have the similar question about emergency response or the tree response result of the storm?
Yeah, so as you know, it was a historic storm and we're still dealing with the aftermath, and our crews are working as hard and fast as they can to remove trees that are a hazard and trees that are about to fall, and then they will go through and clean up trees that are on the ground, but they're dealing with the biggest hazards first. And you can request a stump grinding, you can through 3-on-1 for trees that have fallen. And if you email us and let us know that you would like a tree, but you are able to water a tree for 3 years, every week, 20 gallons, then we can also try to plant a tree, although the wait list is anywhere between 3 and 6 months. And then you can also apply to plant your own tree and buy a tree and water it as well. So we recommend just calling 3-on-1 so we can go to your site and check what the status is of the stump, because we're still dealing with a large number of trees that are on the ground. I hope that answers your question.
I think so. I think our issue is we are very cognizant of what the city is going through, and we recognize that, and we appreciate how hard everyone is working, and we are willing to pay for and have the tree planted by an arborist. But we would prefer not to wait 6 months.
Yeah. So if you want to plant your own tree, you would just apply for a tree planting permit. And it's very easy. We just go and look at the site and say, yes, it can be planted. No, it can't. And we'll issue a tree planting permit.
And then Susan, I just saw a chat where somebody else, they're concerned about a tree that's going to fall. And they're concerned they're not wanting to wait. So,
Exactly. That's another issue as well. Thank you.
so
Yeah.
is that, they would call 311 and somebody go out and say, yeah, you can remove it. Is that essentially the deal?
You could also email our urban forestry inbox. That's urbanforestry@sfdpw.org with a photo. And if it's a very good photo and it's definitely failing, we can say, yes, apply for a retroactive removal permit, and we'll issue it. But generally, we'll want to go out and look and confirm that it can be removed, and we'll put a 24-hour posting notice on it. If you can have an arborist get to it before our crews.
Okay. So
Thank you.
okay. Thank you for the question. I think your question, there's a lot of people on that tuned in here tonight for that very question. So thank you. Any other public comments that are not specific to the hearing?
I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay. Very good. Then with that, we'll move on to item number 3, 1908 Buchanan Street, order number 205536, to consider the removal of one street tree without replacement. Staff denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. This item was continued from September 20th, 2021, order number 205414. Ms. Nonberry.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. Yes, so basically we had to continue this from the September 20th hearing, and it's removal of one street tree without replacement at 1908 Buchanan, and we denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. So it's a mature Zelkova tree and it cannot be replaced, and the removal is proposed for a new garage. The garage footprint was going to be where the tree is now, shifted over to the left. Currently, that they're sharing that driveway space to the right. So only 6.5 feet of that driveway sort of opening is actually on the property owners within their lot lines at 1908 Buchanan. So currently they kind of share that driveway, and they were saying that 6.5 foot width is not enough really room for driveway. The new proposal is to make the garage as planned, but the driveway would be that narrow 6.5 foot curb cut width. And we couldn't get an answer from the Bureau of Street Use and Mapping in time for this hearing to say, if the curb cut is small and 6.5 feet, does that affect the approval of the curb cut if it's smaller than the garage? I know that the Bureau of Street Use and Mapping does not regulate what goes on in the private property setbacks. So if the garage is very large, they're only concerned about the width of the actual curb cut in the right of way. The one answer we didn't get is how small the curb cut can be. I know they have a maximum restriction size, and it's usually 10 feet wide for new curb cuts, but they didn't get back to us on how small they could be. And I would guess that they don't really care if it's smaller, because what matters is how large they are, because the larger a curb cut is, the more parking it takes away from the street. But we denied the tree removal because we felt the tree was worth preserving. So whether or not like the applicant can retain the tree, we denied the tree. So this is our original plan. We thought they could kind of share that curb cut with the neighbor, and the Bureau of Use and Mapping said that if the neighbor to the right were to remove their driveway, the Bureau of Use and Mapping would require them to remove their portion of the curb cut. So we can't ask them to share this driveway unless they come up with a third-party agreement with the neighbor. But if the neighbor were to eliminate their garage, they would have to get rid of their curb cut. So they would have to come up with some sort of agreement. I won't remove my garage. And that's nothing we can enforce or require or ask them to do. So this was our original suggestion in order to try to retain the tree. Yeah, so it's not necessarily anything we can require. So we're asking that you consider the tree. Yeah, so this is the proposition, but it's not something we can like force. It's basically if that neighbor were to remove that curb cut to the right, were to remove their garage on the right, they would have to remove their curb cut. So they would only have like a 6.5 foot curb cut. But we denied the removal of the tree primarily because it was a tree worth preserving, not necessarily because we thought they could preserve the tree through other means, but we did want them to try. And we did appraise the value of the tree. We did take the structure into account. The Public Works Code, Section 806D, allows us to assess an in lieu fee or appraised value of a tree if it cannot be replaced, and the appraised value is $15,100. And Public Works would pursue the appraised value. So that concludes our presentation for 1908 Buchanan.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Is the appellant online? Would the appellant like to speak?
Yes, I'm speaking with someone right now. I'm not sure if they're for this case or another case. The person I'm chatting with, are you in response to this case for Buchanan? Oh,
I see on the chat.
oh, I see. Catherine Lee.
Yes.
Okay, just a moment. Okay, the other person was for another case. Just a moment, Ms. Lee.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So now we can see you and you're able to share your screen as well if you like.
Okay, I will share my screen.
I am Scott Murray, Catherine's partner.
Okay, so some of this will be obviously a repeat because we were here together last time for this conversation.
We were.
So it's kind of nice to see you again, Mr. Goldberg.
Thank you, it's good to see you.
So I just want to remind the parties here of the process, and I think that's really important to be mindful of here, that we communicated with Ms. Nawberry and Sarah Stacy in Urban Forestry over a year ago. And at that time, we were given a checklist and told to submit an application, which we submitted in February of 2021. I did not hear from them. So finally in August, I emailed to ask for an update, at which point I was told that they hadn't done a review and that they would do so. In that time, we went through neighborhood notification for our permit application process. We had 2 of those. Neither yielded any comments. and the planning department approved our drawings without comment. So we are now at the Department of Building for the various approval process there. So again, as a reminder, this is a request for a one-car garage, need for parking in a densely populated, high-traffic neighborhood. The existing parking pad, as Ms. Nawberry stated, lies in part on the neighbor's property. We want to protect the second tree, and we had to work around existing utilities. So we came up with a drawing that recognize these various limitations. Can you see my cursor as I move it
I
around?
can, yes.
So again, this is the existing driveway and car pad, and about 30 inches along the southern perimeter lie on our neighbor's property. And so what looks like a very wide curb cut is in fact mostly a part of the neighbor's property. What lies squarely in front of our property is about 6.5 feet. So we knew that a driveway that's only 6.5 feet would not be sufficient. And so the garage and the driveway extend beyond the existing 6.5 feet of curb cut that is on our property to unfortunately lie behind the tree. So that's why we asked for submitted an application for removal. We did not hear any details about suggestions other than we were simply told that the application was denied. At the September 20th hearing, as you'll recall, Ms. Nawberry introduced the idea of saving the tree and using our neighbor's curb cut. This was an interesting idea, and it would have been one we would have more than happily have considered had we been told of this idea anytime before the September 20th meeting. After you suggested we continue our conversation and we adjourned the meeting, I was in touch with the agency and we continued email dialogue. Urban Forestry contacted BSM, which stated that the issue related to regarding the issues that are about relying on the neighbor's curb cut, and was told we could not rely on the curb cut of our neighbors, as Ms. Nawberry stated. So that made their suggestion untenable. So after all that, we figured we would come to this meeting and have the conversation we are having now. In the meantime, I then thought, going back to the property, we thought the existing curb cut of 6.5 feet might be enough to at least get the wheels of a car onto the driveway, so that if we had a driveway that was wide enough to accommodate a garage, we could still we would just keep the curb cut as is and save the tree. So like Ms. Nawberry, we want to do what we can. We will work with the agency as best as we can to try to preserve this tree. We have no vendetta against this tree. We want to save this tree if we can. And so I propose, after consultation with the planning department, about having a garage that is appropriately 8 feet wide and a driveway that would accommodate that, but a curb cut that would be narrower than the garage width. And Katie from the planning department, who has been overseeing our project, said that was fine. So I contacted planning. I asked Ms. Nawberry to contact the people at BSM that she's been in touch with, and they stated what she reported back, that the garage width is not of their concern to them. And we have not heard regarding the curb cut. So at this point, considering that we are all interested in having both a garage, but also protecting the tree, if there's a way to do both, be more than happy to do so. And if we can await BSM's comments, I'd be more than willing to wait for that. I don't know if we can have another continuance.
We could, but I think I have sufficient information to make a recommendation. So it's, I mean, if we want to wait, I'm good with that, but I have some ideas. I think there's been enough information to make a recommendation, but you're entirely your call, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. If you're ready to, if you feel like you have enough information for us to, like I said, regardless of your recommendation and the department's decision, if we could do it in such a way that the existing curb cut, which is part of our property, but again, it looks like it's much wider, but this is the portion we have control over. We would maintain that, hence saving the tree that's here. This is the second tree, this is the other tree. So the existing trees, the tree in question is here. If we maintain the curb cut, protect the tree, but have a wide driveway that is wider than the existing curb cut and a garage door that begins here is the width of the driveway, we are more than happy to have this work. If BSM says this is unacceptable, then the only way for us to be squarely able to, have a garage without impeding on our neighbor's property would be to, unfortunately, remove the tree.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
And then final point regarding the tree, the valuation on the tree photo from Ms. Newberry, it would be helpful to see again. Our architect who is on the call with us was wondering if there's a split in the tree, and is that considered a possible hazard? In addition, regarding the valuation of the tree, that's a really high valuation for a tree. And I understand that they gave me a very detailed explanation for how that is done. It almost seems as if that number and that valuation is offered as a way to deter this effort to put in the garage. So in addition,
Ms. Lee, the dollar amount is probably not topic here. So, I mean, I think you've expressed it, but it's not something that I'm gonna opine on. So, I think that discussion would probably take place at another time or place.
okay.
Is there any? I think you spoke very well. So, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Any members of the public want to speak on this item? Okay, very good. And I'll say this to you and to anyone else that has a hearing tonight. I should have results out, within a week. So it'll be in the director's office within a week. And I'm not sure how much time they take to review and turn it over, but my experience is it's pretty quickly. So you should know the director's decision, probably within a couple of weeks, I would think.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for your willingness to come back and give it another shot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other public comment, we'll close this item and move on to item number 3 or 4, I guess it is. Item number 4 is order number 205-537. 534 11th Avenue to consider removal of 2 street trees without replacement. Project will pay in lieu of fees. Staff approved the removal and the public has protested. Ms. Newberry.
So this is another construction project, and there's already a garage here, but they need to basically remodel this home and widen this garage. And we initially thought that these were maybe private trees, and there's a lot of back and forth on whether or not we consider these like landscaping shrubs or trees. And once we read our code more carefully, and this would be defined as a tree. It's like it's an upright. It doesn't even really have to be upright. It's a woody species. It's a taxus, and so we instructed them to apply to remove these. And to the right, the garage is kind of expanding where I put that green line. So that would be in the way of the roots essentially. And then on the left, there's a sewer lateral. And so that yew is growing on top of the sewer lateral. And so they need to repair that sewer, and they cannot get to it without removing that tree. And even if they could plant a tree here, it would be, say they were not removing these two yews, but they are still triggering our code, which they are. There's not really room to plant another tree because the neighbor has a tree over to the right, and so that's within less than 12 feet to that tree. So they would be paying in lieu fees for one tree. So essentially, because they're applying to remove these two yews and cannot replace them, we assessed an in lieu fee for each yew. But additionally, because they're triggering the tree planting code beyond just removing and not being able to replace, they also have to pay the in lieu fee for that. So they'll actually pay 3 in lieu fees for the removal of these two yews. And we went back and forth, our entire team went back and forth to just make sure that made sense. And it's just, we treat this in phases, and the removal without replacement of 2 trees triggers the payment of in lieu fees. And then separately, their construction also triggered an in lieu fee because they cannot plant a tree, even if they were to not be removing a tree. So that's how we kind of came to this conclusion that these were approved for removal because we kind of at first initially weren't even sure they would qualify as trees. And then we decided that the in lieu fee would help us with our adopt a tree fund. And the value of these trees wasn't high enough to deny the removal. And the overall ecosystem values of these trees. So, I mean, I understand that all living plants provide some value, but in this case, it wasn't feasible to deny the removal of this construction based on how the plans were approved already. So we approved the removal of these 2 street trees without replacement and payment of 2 in lieu fees, plus the additional in lieu fee when the project is complete.
Oh, okay, so so in lieu fee for each of the trees,
Yeah.
and then the construction triggers a separate in lieu fee. Is what you're
Yes.
saying. Okay,
Yeah.
so
That's
there's
just,
sewer lateral. Okay,
Mhm.
And then so the other question is, and this seems to be happening, is if planning approves these, or is it supposed to go to buff before it goes to planning, or how does planning approve these without you get them after the fact? I mean, it seems to be the same thing that happened with the last item on the agenda.
Yeah, if we're lucky enough to get the notification that the tree might be removed, but the planning doesn't have a criteria for reviewing trees. They don't have the staffing really to even check if there's a tree on site, so they don't take that on. And so what we have ended up doing is, there used to be a checklist back before section 806D. The tree planting code became part of the urban forestry ordinance. It used to be the part of the green landscaping ordinance, it was section 138.1. And basically there was a checklist, and it had our construction triggers, and it said, are you going to remove a tree? And so now they're putting that back on the checklist, and we should be getting these sooner. But it's still up to Buff really to try to convince the planner not to approve the garage for the tree. And it's not necessarily even, we don't want a garage. It could be like, please don't put the garage on the right side of the building just to match the rest of the street, because if you just keep it on the left side, we can retain a tree and they can have a garage. But in this case, this one didn't really go through planning review for trees, and it wasn't even clear that those were trees until we looked on Google Street View and reviewed our code and realized that those U's are considered trees.
Okay, and the reason it triggers the city code is because they're adjacent to the street or within so much of the city property? They're on private property, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, so their construction, it's not just the widening of the curb cut, but there's triggers such as addition of 500 square feet. Adding an ADU will trigger an in lieu fee. Adding a new curb cut and a new garage will trigger our tree planting code. And so they're triggering, I believe, the 500 gross square feet addition.
Oh, okay, but the question on the tree removals because because it's within so many feet of the public side.
Oh yeah, they are
Okay.
technically street trees. Initially, we thought they weren't, and then we checked our data, and they are street trees.
But are they on private property or on the street?
They are not. They are in the right of way.
They're in the right of way. Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. The appellant, is the appellant online and would like to speak? Anyone like to speak on this? Do we know who appealed?
If you're there, can you raise your hand, please? And then I will allow you to speak. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, so no one spoke against it. Is the appeal letter in my packet?
I don't know offhand, but I know I've sent you everything that that we had before this time. I'm not logged into
Yeah, no, I understand.
this work system right now.
Okay, all right. Well,
It should be in. It would have been uploaded to the permit, so it should be in there.
Yeah, it should be in there. So
I don't know if Lance. Sorry, my mouse is. If Lance Carnes is present, is he present? I think he might have been the protester.
no,
Okay.
no, he's not.
okay. I don't see it in the packet, but I'll get it later. Well, hearing no one willing, any members of the public want to speak on this? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the next item. So next item would be item number 5 on the agenda, order number 205-538, 1335 Divisadero Street, to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement. Staff denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. Strawberry.
So it's one LaFossman Convertis, and so the applicant is concerned about, has in their application stated they're concerned about the safety of this tree. And we have records of reviewing this tree since 2014. We've come here almost annually. We came here twice in 2020. This tree is structurally sound, and I know that it doesn't have perfect structure. We just don't have failures from Brisbane box the way we have failures with ficus when we have these codominant stems. And because we also have street tree SF, the applicant can contact us as many times as they want for an inspection. And in addition, we will prune the tree if it has any sort of condition that warrants us pruning it outside of our grid cycle. In addition, we have a grid cycle and we'll be pruning the trees every 3 to 5 years. This tree is slated to be pruned in 2023. And we also have the maintenance of, so it does have a lien, and I do want to point that out, but I also think that lien is phototropic. So the lien is going to tell you which direction it's going to fall, but it's not necessarily going to tell you that it is going to fall. Our cement shop, as part of Street Tree SF, they're highly skilled. They're cement masons. It takes a lot of training to be a cement mason with the city of San Francisco. And they don't cut roots injudiciously. They're very careful. if this tree had to have sidewalk repair that necessitated root pruning, we would post the tree for removal, as sad as it is. But in this case, there's not really a large amount of uplift in the sidewalk. And so we're not really concerned about, let's remove the tree for future fear that the tree could fall in the event that we might repair the sidewalk. That's just not how we need to operate with street tree SF. We have to address these concerns in order of worst first. And in addition, we want to retain trees as long as we can, unless they absolutely become a safety concern. But we did not think that this tree warranted removal. And here is like, that yellow mark is the gas line. But most gas lines are 36 inches or deeper. And so yes, if they had to access that gas line and remove it and replace it, we would understand that that necessitated the removal. But that's not really the case here. And most structural roots are the top 18 inches of the soil. And then some roots are within 36 inches. But essentially, there's not really a real root gas line conflict, and we've never really seen that. And I used to work on the gas line project with PG&E, and we had all these algorithms for the distance of trees and gas lines. But really what it comes down to is how deep that line is. And of course, tree roots can find the outside of pipes, that can find condensation and go around them. But at this time, we're not finding any issues like with the gas line. And the water meter is right. You can see it's kind of covered in soil here. And that's another thing that's the maintenance responsibility of the city. And again, it's not something we're going to go out of our way to remove a tree for proactively. What we would do is see if there's root intrusion and how many roots the arborists need to cut to clear this meter. So we don't think the reasons for removal at this time are sufficient. Another reason for removal that was cited was the tree would be in my way when I back out of my garage. The thing is that you can't just remove all infrastructure because you can't see. There's going to be a parked car next to your curb cut. This is a condition across the city. You're never going to have perfectly clear visibility, and they'll never move a power pole or a street light or a muni pole for your garage curb cut. I don't think the tree should be treated any differently. Trees are critical infrastructure. So I don't see a good reason for removal at this time with regards to this tree. So that's why we denied the removal of this tree. And that concludes the Bureau of Urban Forestry's presentation on 1335 Divisadero.
Great, thank you. Is the appellant president like to speak, or would anyone like to speak on this?
Yes, we do. Go ahead, you may speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you so much. Can I share my screen? Let me see.
Okay, just a moment. I'll promote you to panelist, and then you will need to unmute yourself once again.
Okay.
Sir, can you state your name and spell it for the record, just so we have it?
Okay, you're a panelist now, so can you unmute yourself and please state your name for us and spell it for the record?
Hi, it's my name is Srikant Jajare, Sri for short.
Okay.
And the spelling of it is Srikantth.
Oh.
Last name is Jujare.
And you're the property owner?
I'm the owner, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you'll have 3 minutes you can go ahead and share your screen at this time.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, John. So I would like to start by saying that this tree has many problems. I love trees. I really like trees, and that's the environment I grew up in. I enjoy them. But this tree has a number of problems. A number of them, Susan touched on them already. One is that the tree has a very significant lean onto Divisadero Street. It's the entire canopy of the tree is on Divisadero Street, right on top of high voltage muni lines. And if the branches were to break, it could be extremely dangerous. There were a couple of branches that were broken yesterday, and I have pictures of those. I'll share those. But it's right on top of muni lines. It's got an extremely significant lean that you saw in a picture already. The other thing is that there's a very significant visual obstruction when exiting the exiting the garage and coming out. The tree is basically right next to the driveway. So, and it is already 17.7 inches wide, the trunk, and it is right next. And it's a very busy street, lots of pedestrians, lots of traffic, and it causes a big blind spot for cars that are exiting the garage and entering the garage. It could be very dangerous. It's a hazard. The location of the tree is horrible. It's right, the roots are right on top of the gas line. The gas line could pop any day. The water line has already popped. Luckily, it's popped beyond the meter, and I have pointed this out to SF to the water department, and it's there's a water leak that it's not on my water bill because it's just beyond the water meter. There's a water leak constantly, and you can if you open the trap there, you can see the water just continually falling off. The water line has already popped. The gas line could pop. It's just a bad location. The tree should never have been planted given how close the utility lines are right there. There's another cable line right next to it. It should have been planted a few feet away. There are falling branches. I'll share some pictures of that. And we are willing to replace the tree with a city recommended tree, something that is safe. So there is not going to be any kind of so there won't be any kind of damage in a way, in the sense that the city will have a tree and we will provide that tree. If we just have a different location for the tree, we could have a healthy tree that is not leaning, that is not
30 seconds.
visual obstruction. So let me share some pictures here. Is this visible?
Your bullet points are still visible. No pictures yet.
Okay. I'm not sure. Are the pictures visible at all?
No.
Okay.
So what you can do if you'd like to, you can email them to me, and I'll consider them in my recommendations.
Okay.
My email address is John, JOHN,
Okay.
period, Goldberg, GOLD,
Mhm.
BERG,
Okay.
at sfdpw.org.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will do so shortly. I'm not opposed to having a tree. I would just like another tree to be planted a few feet away. So, the city would have a tree. I'll pay for the removal. I'll pay for installation of the new tree, by a certified arborist. And we just want something that is going to be safe for us, safe for the pedestrians that are walking by the street. It's a big hazard as far as I'm concerned. This tree needs to go. You saw the lean on the picture that Susan already shared. It's significantly bad. The location is horrible as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Well,
So I'll look at your pictures and include those in my recommendations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right. Are there other speakers on this item?
Yes, I see. There is a hand for Roy.
Okay, he's next up. So why don't we go with him? Roy, if you want to give your last name, fine. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah. Hi, this is Roy Leggett,
Okay,
Leggitt. I'm a consulting arborist, and I was employed by Mr. Dejari to take a look at this tree and provide him with a report.
I have your report and I've read it, yes.
Okay. Well, I assert that the tree poses a high risk or is a high hazard, and city staff kind of disputed that a little bit, but I want to clarify the basis for that. It's both due to the lean of the tree and issues with confinement of roots, and also looking, and I don't know if I can share or if this is visible on video. I don't know if you're seeing my camera or not. But
I don't,
No, we're not. Did you want me to promote you to panelist so you can share?
yeah, actually, if you could enable my camera, I'll just hold the book up that I'm referring to, so that okay. I should be visible now.
Yes,
yes, you are, sir.
Okay. Well, this book is our best management practices book for tree risk assessment. It's our industry standard. And looking at page 53, you can see that one of the aspects of tree risk assessment that we're supposed to consider are obstructions to traffic control signs, etc. And then page 54 has a table that also includes a reference to traffic safety and visibility. And the only option for addressing obstruction for traffic safety is to either remove a branch or remove a tree. And because the tree is 17.7 inches diameter, which is a big tree, a fairly large tree, and it's very close to the driver's window. If a car were exiting nose first, like say the car backed into the garage and was driving out, which would probably be the safest way to get in and out of that kind of garage. It's very similar to my own garage, which is not too far away. If you were trying to nose your car out into traffic, you'd have a tree between you and oncoming traffic to the left. Being this is Divisadero Street, not too far from Geary Boulevard. My experience with that particular street and that block is that traffic moves along at a pretty good speed, and having something that's right in front of your field of view and obstructing your view of oncoming traffic, and when that's a tree, I think that's a big problem, and it's something that does complicate the tree risk assessment, and it does, I think, add to what tree risk is about in that particular setting. And so I think that it should be considered a high-risk tree because of these various components and the fact that there is a high rate of speed and a lot of traffic on that particular street. So anyway, that's my perspective on it, and it is founded on the best management practices. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Mr. Leggett. Okay, next up, I see Mr. Clip has his hand up.
Go ahead, Mr. Clip.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. One of the things I'm a little confused about is why we're not talking about this tree going back in the same location. Why are we talking about it going back in a different location? And that makes me wonder if this is less worry about a tree falling than it is about widening a driveway or making a garage more accessible, which I really hope is not the case, because that is exactly what we do not need to be focusing on at a time that we are facing the impacts of irreversible climate change, to be finding ways to ease the installation of our roofs over combustible engines. I'm also a little curious why we're not talking about the appraised cost of this tree versus just an in lieu fee. That an in lieu fee doesn't even come close to what the benefit is of this tree to the city. And a sapling is never going to replace the ecosystem benefits of a 17-inch DBH tree. And then finally, regarding the safety issue, I think we're really choosing to look at this in a vacuum here. If you walk down any major corridor in San Francisco, you'll see that there are a lot of obstructions to backing out onto busy streets. So now when we're going to get into the business of making sure that everybody can get out of their driveway with no problems at all at any given time, there are going to be a lot of things that are in the way of that. And if we start to pin that down on trees, then I suppose we should be prepared to start removing a lot more trees for that reason alone, because that is an issue all over the city on countless streets. So I would just respectfully submit that that issue in and of itself is not a reason to take out a tree ever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? I see
Yes, it is Mr. Nolte.
Mr. Nolte.
Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for this presentation. I too would weigh in with the agreement with or presentation of the Bureau of Forester that this tree should stay. Unfortunately, I believe the property owner is remodeling his property and chose to do so, and you can see in the picture that he's already done the lower floor and upper floor. So it's not just a garage he's doing the whole building. So looking at what's going on at the property and just assuming he can do what he wants and choosing to take off the tree. I feel that is a little bit disturbing. You bought the property, you saw the tree there, and now you want to change how the property looks. So without any regards to and living on a busy corridor, you're always going to have traffic on Divisadero. I've done tree surveys on Divisadero, so I've gone past this property, and I don't see that there is an issue with the tree or the property as is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Okay.
I don't see any other hands from the public at this time. The owner is raising his hand, but I believe he can submit further comment to the urban forestry inbox and we send it to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, or he's got my email address. So we only have kind of one bite at the apple here. So if you have additional comments, I just submit them to me with the tree pictures, and I'll include those in my recommendations to the director. Okay. So are there any new speakers?
There are no other hands at this time.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is one from DJ Bowler.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. You should be able to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how long that tree has been there, but it looks like it must have been there quite a while to have the growth that it has. And the trees have or should have rights to their space. That tree has been holding that space for a long time, and for it to be attacked because it's in someone's way of doing something that they're thinking of now just does not jibe, and I wanted to say that.
All right. Ms. Bowler, thank you very much for your comment. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay. Very good. Well, then with that, we'll close public comment on this item. And we'll move on to item number 6. Order number 205-539, 25 26th Avenue, to consider the removal of one significant tree on private property with replacement. Staff denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. Ms. Notberry?
Yes, so this is a significant tree this time. So privately maintained, not a street tree. But you must apply for a permit for a significant tree if it's within 10 feet of the public right of way. This one is, I believe, within 5 feet of the public right of way. And it meets the significant tree criteria of being over 12 inches in diameter, over 20 feet tall, and also over 15-foot canopy spread, although only one of those criteria needs to be met. And so this isn't exactly a garage installation. It kind of is. It's a remodel of a garage, and they're going to add like a second story above that garage. And the details of like the actual construction, I think the applicant can clarify as well. But essentially, the new building will be kind of in that canopy of the tree. The tree is replantable where it stands now. In the event that, our denial is overturned, I just want to clarify again that Article 16 allows us to appraise the value of a tree if it cannot be replaced. So we would pursue the appraised value, but for now, we determined that it can be replaced. So the arborist report did state that it was kind of in poor condition, unhealthy, and it does have these little brown patches in the canopy, but you can see the majority of the canopy is green. And yes, there is no perfect tree. Yes, many trees have structural issues. There's nothing about this tree that can't be dealt with in terms with pruning. So there's just another view of the tree. It's a conifer, and we don't like included bark in a conifer. Sorry about that. Just wanted to go. Okay, so right there it has a stem that it's codominant, and it does have a tight union, but with conifers you're dealing with compression wood, and so there isn't tension wood, which kind of pulls on the tree and keeps the tree sort of, it pulls against gravity essentially. And so when you have a tree, for example, with a lean, the tree, like opposite side of the lean is what develops tension wood. Well, conifers develop what's called compression wood. And so the wood pushes sort of up. So we're not really as concerned with like this tight union on this tree. And the inspector who observed this tree also observed that the union had good reaction wood. So we don't think that the health and structure is a concern with this tree. And so that white around the tree, that's just like the tree protection. That's not a structure. The base of the tree didn't have any defects. It was planted at the right depth. So again, here's the proposed and existing driveway. So the project said the removal is not necessary. This is from an email to accomplish the remodeling project at the site. But under the remodel, the garage and driveway layout will remain essentially the same. The second story will be added to the garage. So here's the existing and proposed plans. The removal is being requested because the existing tree leans into and overhangs the driveway, which presents a nuisance. This garage is wide. So essentially what I think is that whatever is going on there on the left side, if you excluded that and only considered what was going on the right side, that's still a very large garage. I don't think that removing this tree for this design is very prudent. And I wish that they had considered this tree before committing to this design. So we felt that this tree was worth retaining and is in good condition. And so if we denied the removal here at 25 6th Avenue. And that concludes our presentation on 25 6th Avenue.
Very good, thank you. Does the applicant wish to speak, or somebody speak on the applicant's behalf? Or appellant, excuse me? I
Yes,
see-
we have Melinda.
Melinda, if you want to give your last name, I'll put that down.
Hi, yes, thank you, Susan. This is Melinda Sarjapur. It's Sarjapur.
Uh-huh, okay,
With Ruben Junius and Rose, and I'm here on behalf of the property owners.
okay.
Am I able to share my screen?
Yes, I will promote you and then you will unmute yourself once again. You can go ahead and mute yourself and then you should be able to share your screen as well.
Okay.
And once you begin sharing and speaking, you will have 3 minutes from that time.
All right, it looks like I'm going to have issues with
Oh,
sharing
don't-
my screen. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Don't worry about it. I have lots of issues with the computer, so.
Okay, well,
I'm not,
yeah, it's unfortunate, but we submitted a brief with some additional information on the request, which I hope you had a chance to take a look at.
I have, I've seen the entire, I've seen it, and I've also read the arborist report, so I
Okay.
have it all.
Great. Okay. Well, so what I would have pulled up was the elevation drawing we have in there that shows kind of the location of the tree in front of this driveway. And Susan is correct. The remodeling project itself is not putting a portion of the building on the tree to necessitate its removal. The concerns the owner have are issues that have been a concern with this tree for a while, and also likely impacts of replacing damage adjacent to it from the roots in the driveway as part of that remodel. So while no one likes to remove a tree, in this situation, we feel the request is merited for a number of reasons. First, as Susan pointed out, this tree is located along the home's driveway, and unfortunately, as it's grown, it's developed a lean in its trunk and the canopy over the driveway. And that lean obstructs vehicle access and prevents parking at the side of the driveway, which is again, a condition that's been there for some time, but the access points are not changing, and it is a concern. It creates a safety issue. If drivers enter that left garage entrance or back up too quickly, they could collide with it. Because the lean here is in the main trunk of the tree, it's not possible to prune it in a way that would fix that condition. Secondly, the tree trunk has grown around the existing concrete driveway. We had a certified arborist prepare a report to take a look at the health of the tree, and I believe he's here tonight so he can speak more closely to that. But the roots in that area, and we have some images in the file that we submitted, have lifted and cracked the surface of the driveway, which has created an unsafe condition. The owners here are undergoing a remodeling project, and they'll be replacing and resurfacing the damaged driveway to replace it, to repair it. And as the arborist report noted, cutting back those roots that have damaged the driveway surface on this leaning tree may impact its health and could possibly destabilize it, which could create a hazardous condition. So they prefer to remove that now rather than wait to see if the condition worsens or if it continues to damage the driveway area. And finally, it's not in particularly good health. The owner's arborist evaluated the tree and found that it's in just fair health overall and poor to fair structural condition. And that among other things, he noted that the train's main trunk has grown into 2 codominant stems around 3 feet in height with what he characterized as a weak branch attachment and included bark between the 2. So our understanding is that increases potential for future breaks at that location in combination with the leans and other damage. And it's a significant concern for the homeowners, especially given the trees other conditions and placement next to the driveway in the public right away. So for those reasons, we're asking that the director approve the owner's request to remove this tree, and we're available for any questions.
Okay, I have one question. The driveway from the sidewalk to the front of the garage door, I'm not great at reading plans. I see
Mhm.
elevations, but I don't see the distances marked there.
You're
Do
looking
you
for
have
the depth of the driveway from the tree to the garage entrance?
Yeah, from the sidewalk to the garage entrance, yes.
Mhm.
Do
I
we
don't
that?
have that. I don't have the site plan in front of me right now, but I would be happy to email it to you.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay,
Mr. Goldberg, we have Ned, which is the arborist, waiting to speak as well.
great. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Is it Patchett or Pache?
It's Patchett. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sure
we
can. Go ahead,
Hello?
Mr. Patchett.
Okay. So my name is Ned Patchett. I am the consulting arborist for the project. Last name is spelled P-A-T-C-H-E-T-T. And I just wanted to reiterate a few of the things that Melinda just recently said. The concerns for the structure of the tree, as Susan stated, compression and tension wood are definitely real factors there to consider. But with these codominant branch attachments where we have these tight unions between the two main stems, the thing that I find that can lead to the failure is as the diameters continue to increase in size, they eventually meet together and start to exert tension and force on each other, essentially kind of pushing against each other, which is my concern with the structural attachment of this tree. The other thing that I'm concerned about with the tree is it's in fair condition and health right now, but as the project proceeds and the tree's root system is impacted from the removal of the roots that are causing the current damage, I'm concerned that it will lead to further decline in the tree. And also, I think there's a high likelihood that the roots would probably return and cause further damage to the new surface of the driveway. And that repeated process of going through constant root impacts and root loss, trying to repair the driveway would likely, result in a tree that, through my experience, will just continue to decline. So those are my concerns. If anyone has any questions for me about that, I'd be happy to answer.
Sure. So I have two questions. When you talk about the codominant stems, pushing against each other, what kind of a time frame are you talking about where you're saying that the increased, is this imminent? Are we talking, weeks, months, years, decades?
I would say with the current condition of the tree, it is not weeks or months. I would say we're looking at years before I would expect that to compound and become a problem. Truest issue here that I see and most concerned about is really the root issue.
Okay, so let me ask about, and the only reason I ask is that tree roots are a problem, kind of wherever they interface with concrete. So how would the root issue be different if this tree was removed and was replaced with another tree? Would those roots not also impact the
I think
driveway in
that
the
you would
same
want
manner in
to
the future?
Yeah, I think you would want to pick a species if indeed something was replaced in that location that is going to have a far less aggressive rooting system. One thing that I neglected to comment upon that is also another concern here is that driveway surface has become embedded in that lower section of the trunk. As the trunk is kind of increased in outgrown the planting area that was allocated for it initially, it's kind of wrapped over and got wrapped into that portion of that driveway. And the replacement process will require that to be pulled out and removed out of there. And it's unknown what kind of impacts that may have.
Okay, all right. Thank you for answering those questions. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are there other speakers that want to speak on this item? Mr. Clip, I see your hand up.
Go ahead, Mr. Clip.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Yeah, so I think the city's experienced arborist explained pretty clearly just how the concerns raised by Ned are not concerns when it comes to this particular type of tree. And to say that a project impacts are going to hurt the tree shouldn't lead to it being removed. It should lead to it being protected. I'd also point out, if you're concerned about pavement, we can use permeable surface, which is better for the environment than pavement anyway. And if you can't design a garage around an existing tree, then maybe you shouldn't get a garage. I mean, what we're saying here is it's a nuisance based on the design that the applicant came up with themselves. So for everyone who's listening on the call, just a little point of education, this issue around the city's tree canopy is a pretty hot button issue at this very moment. We know that San Francisco has the smallest urban canopy of any major city in the US, and that we have an urban forest plan to add 50,000 trees by 2034. But a June 2021 report by the city's budget and legislative analyst states that not only are we completely failing to meet the objectives of that plan, we aren't even planting one for one. Hold on. Can you please pause me for a moment?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Can I continue?
Please do.
Thank you for your patience. I had to find where I was. That we aren't even planning one for one the number of trees it takes to keep up with our current rate of removal. So here we are, we just lost millions of acres of trees to fire following a drought. We've lived through the heaviest rainfall in 48-hour period since the gold rush, but we're designing garages and plans and calling a healthy tree that already existed a nuisance and seeking its removal. Under all these circumstances, we're going to continue to not only fail against our urban forest plans goals, but also fail on our Department of Environment's climate action plan that relies on the fulfillment of that plan. So in a nutshell, if we routinely approve removals like this, we sort of deserve what we get in terms of climate resilience in the future. And I suspect a lot of questions from future generations about how on earth we could be making decisions like this at a time like this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clip. Are there other speakers on this item? I see
Yes.
Ms. Bowler.
Go ahead, Ms. Bowler. You should be able to speak.
Yes, again, I think that the tree has its place, and it's had its place for a long time, and it has to be respected for what it is and where it is. And the design of that has been made should have taken that into consideration at the time that they made their plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowler. Do we have other speakers on this? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll close this item. And we'll
We
move.
do have a hand by Michael Nolte.
Snuck in there, Mr. Nolte. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Michael Nolte, N-U-L-T-Y.
Thank you.
It seems to me that I used to live on 6th Avenue, and I believe that, you know, one thing about the Richmond is having its trees in Richmond. And when I hear a property owner that wants to remove a tree because they think it's a nuisance, it kind of goes against the whole idea of even living in a beautiful neighborhood that has one trees. It's right next to Golden Gate Park, and a lot of trees are along the right of way. And I mean, it's just it's unimaginable that people don't want to keep what the Richmond has been in Richmond and Richmond have created. Also, like one of the speakers said before, is you make choices as to how you can keep everything as is. And I think it's up to the property owner to try to work with the city to keep the tree and make it so everything is compatible. I think, you know, when people come onto these hearings and basically say, well, maybe this is going to happen, maybe this is going to happen, maybe it's all maybes. Let's stick to reality. Reality is the tree was there first, or is still there, and I haven't heard anything about it not surviving the storm we just had. So if it has survived the storm, that means it's in pretty good health. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Okay. I don't see any more hands. Cerise?
I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay, I called it too early last time.
Right.
So we're on our final, and I apologize. One, our final item, item number 7, order number 205540, 695 Rhode Island Street, the removal of one street tree without replacement. Staff denied the removal and the applicant has appealed.
Yes, so this is one small ginkgo biloba, and we denied the removal, and as you see, it's without replacement, and that's because this is another garage installation application, and the garage is going to be directly in front of where the tree is. So this would eliminate not just the tree, which is healthy and doing the best it can to grow out there in one of the warmest places of the city, but it would eliminate a tree site as well, and so that means the loss of the benefits of a tree for forever. So the reason why the tree can't be replaced to the right is because there are too many utility conflicts. There is a sewer and a water line, and it would be too close to the neighboring tree as well. And I bring that up a lot because I like to maximize the number of trees we can plant. It helps people avoid paying in lieu fees, but it also grows our canopy. But we're not going to let people plant trees right next to each other because that would just cause competition between two trees, and you end up with two trees that are in poor condition. When you're kind of better off with an in lieu fee or the existing tree, because if you have two trees that are competing, they're often one is going to die. You just lose the tree anyway. So essentially, this tree is not replaceable, and it's a complete loss of planting site. This neighborhood kind of has, it's not the lowest canopy in the city, but it doesn't have very high canopy numbers. It's in District 10, and we're trying to grow the canopy in District 10. So the way the placement of the tree conflicts with the garage here, and planning the garage isn't going to be put on the left. And I do wonder if planning would have considered it being on the left, or if because the front door is already there and the right side maybe it's just a room that's not being used. What if they maybe would have considered putting the garage to the left? But unfortunately, we're not often called into these reviews. All we can do is get the tree removal application and deny the removal because it's a complete loss of a planting site. So to summarize, we denied the removal because we're going to lose a planting site forever, and the tree is healthy and sustainable.
Okay. An email came in late today suggesting the tree can be replanted 18.5 feet to within 18.5 feet from the tree downhill. Have you seen that email, or do you have an opinion on that?
No, I have not seen that email. So
replanting should occur not where indicated by the present plans, but at 18.5 feet to the right of the nearest downhill tree. While I recognize this is an exception to the 20-foot separation, I believe 18.5 feet to be equivalent and without any negative effects on aesthetics, function, blah, blah, blah. And this is from a tree specialist at UC Berkeley.
And Mr. Goldberg, we do have the architect here who would like to speak to that as well.
Okay, well, I'd like to hear what the department has, if the department has any opinion on this.
I would think I'll double check why we thought it couldn't be replaced. There might be other infrastructure there that the inspector was considering, or it might possibly sit on a property line. We can't mandate that a person's replacement tree for their project be adjacent to another property. So I'll have to double check, and it would help if the architect does have.
Okay, maybe perhaps the architect can speak to it, and then I mean, the best is always if everyone's happy. So,
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Demolante, you should be able to speak.
Good evening. I'm hoping I can share a screen too. How are you?
Okay, just one moment. I'll promote you to panelist and then you will need to unmute your phone again or your device. Just one
Yeah.
moment.
so Mr. Demolante, while you're getting ready, you're the project architect.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
I'll start off with trying to clarify. Somehow the notes is not clear because we don't intend to remove the tree. Actually, this project is meant to relocate the tree. And I'll show kind of what we really wanted to do. Somehow some of these things weren't given to Public Works in time, I guess. But we intended to always relocate the tree. The owners do like the tree. So what we had in mind was to move it over roughly about 3 feet over. And we did consult with Dr. I'm so sorry, Dr. Mateo from UC Berkeley, who he's professor there. And he did give us some requirements to move the tree successfully. Essentially, it's one to move it within November and between November and March, and then to excavate about twice the tree canopy, and then roughly it would be 18 foot 6 inches away from the tree to the left. So our rough sketch kind of shows where it would be. And essentially there is kind of only one real good spot for it because of the gas clearances and the utility clearances underground. It's tight to our driveway, but we're okay with that. So in essence, we're really asking to relocate the tree, the same tree, 3 feet over. And then obviously we feel that the tree adds all the values that we like about the tree, and there's no dispute on our side that it's a great tree. So,
Okay.
in essence, sorry, the reason this is from the Planning Department approval. The building itself was built over 45 years ago, so there was only one spot to put the garage, which is where we have it, and the entry can't move. The bay windows can't move, and none of this will be changed as well. So because of that, our
Okay.
location, is just where it is.
Okay. If you're done, Ms. Daubert, do you have any, are you prepared to opine at this point, or do you want to think about this? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, we'd have to review just because I'm concerned about a driveway, the lowered grade of a driveway, making it so that that right side of that basin wouldn't have like room for tree roots. Yeah, so I'm concerned that the grade of a driveway would make it so that there wouldn't be enough growing space. And the other thing is, this tree is established, and if you were to remove it and move it, you would basically need to get like a very large spade, cut a bunch of roots, lift it up, put it in like burlap, soak it, keep it alive in a nursery until the end of the project, and then put it back. And if it doesn't die by then, you then would probably need to water it with like 100 gallons a week because it's so large. And because you're basically have cut a bunch of roots and you're trying to reestablish a tree. So that's why we don't consider relocation really anything different than a removal. So that's why we treat removals the same as relocations, because when you transplant a tree, pretty much it has like higher than 50% chance of dying. So it's almost a removal. So we would say that you just have to pick a new tree if this were approved. And then, so it shows that you're trying to relocate the parking sign. But yeah, my main concern is if that driveway, the grade, makes it so that that new location is kind of like only half of the growing space available.
Okay. We consulted with someone who's consulted with the city and also the state before. So we took what he wrote and that was sent to Marcus earlier as a good recommendation. But I do understand what you're saying. Would there be a consideration then if it was then not a relocation, but a new tree then to plant 3 feet over to the left? Would that, we don't want it, we like the idea of a tree. It's very much the intention to have one there. Would that be a better type of application or request?
Well, so we didn't deny it just because it's a relocation versus removal. I think it was denied because the inspector thought A, it couldn't be replaced, and B, like the replacement location may not be feasible because of that, the way you put in that driveway with the grade, it just makes it so that half of that basin isn't really available growing space. So I think we need to see, is this one where we could maybe not necessarily continue, but get more information and then postpone like a written decision until later, or that's a question for John?
Yeah.
I guess on if you guys agree on something, then I guess my sense is there's no appeal from the public.
Yeah.
There, that'd be okay. If there's a disagreement, obviously we have to come back. Or if there's a public appeal, this is a public process. So my sense is the public needs to have the opportunity to opine.
Yeah.
So I'm going to suggest. Well, it doesn't. It's up to you. It's up to the appellant to decide how to move forward, either to continue the hearing to another hearing.
What we would love to do is
see if you guys can work out a deal. Okay. And then if it works out and the public and there's no appeals from the public, then we don't need to have another hearing. If you guys work out a deal and there's appeals from the public, then we'll be back here. If you don't work out a deal, I guess we'll be back here also. So you have a 1 in 3 chance, I guess, is the kind of the.
Would Public Works be comfortable with telling us a tree that they would like us to replant? Or if that, I think that would be great on our side. That's a win. If you just said, if you told us, plant this, I don't know, give us a couple options, I guess. If not, then just tell us the one that you like and we'll plant that one.
Yeah.
I think I can agree to that. Yeah.
We have an approved street tree list. I think so the inspector would be the one who would then, upon closer review of the plans, approve or deny. And he may still say, like, well, this is a healthy tree and I want to uphold my denial. And the public, and then if he said, I'm going to approve it, and we review this as a staff, not just one person making the decision, but if one of us says, like, let's approve it because we can get a replacement tree, the public can still say, like, well, why are you approving the removal of this healthy established tree? Because we don't necessarily believe that, like, the replacement tree can.
Could I suggest an option that I don't know if is real option, but could we do a replacement tree and the in lieu fee, just so that we can kind of cover, the best intentions?
I can ask if that's allowed. like in lieu, and what the rationalization for accepting that in terms of like our code and how replacement trees.
Well, I guess the way I looked at it was, if you're looking at it as we're losing the tree, then okay, we'll justify it by paying the in lieu fee, but we still like to plant a tree. So if you tell us, hey, pay the in lieu fee because you're removing the tree, that's how you're defining it, then okay, so that's our pay, or that's the reason for that. And then we still want to plant a tree, so we'll pick from one of your trees, and we're okay with that.
So let me suggest we move on. I mean, because even if you two agree on something, the public still has a right to speak to the proposed. If a tree is going to be removed, there's still an opportunity for the public to speak to it at the hearing. Sometimes it's the public that appeals the tree removal that perhaps the department has granted. So why don't I open it up to the public comment and see if anyone wants to, because there's certainly some advocates that have spoken in the past, and maybe they have a sense of what they would be comfortable with or not. And then we can go back to you two. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's you reserve your time to speak at the end, and we'll open it to public comment. Or is there any public comment?
Okay, we have a hand for Dan Feldman.
Okay.
Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. I'm Dan Feldman, F as in Frank, ELDMAN. And I think, as the past people have talked about, these people just want to remove a tree so they can do their development. And removing a tree and replacing it with a brand new tree just doesn't replace ecosystem services that the tree there represents. It's been there for 15 years. It's a firm, it's a well-established tree. And we live in District 10, and on the block of Rhode Island Street from 19th to 18th Street, there are only 3 trees on that side. This would be removing 1/3 of them and replace. And they're not talking, the owners there don't care about the tree. They want to get their house in with the driveway, and they're looking for a way to make it work. We need the trees, we need the canopies. The Public Works Department has spoken, they are experts, and the neighborhood needs trees. We're District 10, we have one of the fewest tree canopies. And we need to keep this tree here. And people need to realize when they get a property and want to do renovations or whatever, if there's an existing tree there, they have to work around it, not just replace it and remove it, because that's what they want to do. Okay. My family has lived on this block for 50 years. We've encouraged many people to plant trees. It's been barren until the last 10 or 15 years. And just pulling this tree out willy-nilly, especially given what's happening with climate change and et cetera, it just doesn't make sense.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Mr. Clip, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
All right. I promise my dogs are safely ensconced now.
Very good, sir.
All right. So regarding tree location, I just want to point out that a tree isn't a piece of furniture you can just pick up and move to the left. And saying that we'll plant another one is not enough to justify removal. I like Mr. Feldman, I live around the corner from this tree. And if you think the canopy in our neighborhood is low now, just wait till after the storm cleanup is done. A brief personal story that over 10 years ago, a couple of my neighbors were fighting about a backyard tree, and to resolve it, they just cut the whole thing down, which broke my heart. And I vowed to fix that by planting my own tree. And for the last 10 years, I tended that tree, and it collapsed in my backyard yesterday. So I get to spend tomorrow afternoon with a chainsaw taking out the one thing that brought me joy in the face of hearings like this. I've also spent 12 years planting trees with Friends of the Urban Forest, and I've seen countless trees go unwatered, untended, or just get ripped out for construction. Again, just like this, despite thousands of volunteers and volunteer hours working on weekends in their spare time and free time to build or even replace our urban canopy. I'm just one guy, but I have done and will continue to do all I can to ensure our cities and my neighborhood's future climate resilience by growing and protecting our urban canopy. But I cannot do this by myself. An army of volunteers can't do it by themselves. We need the city, including planning, to grow a spine and start telling people we can't take out trees to house our cars. That is not sustainable and it is not smart. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clip. Okay. Are there any other public comments? All right, I see, I see a hand just went up. 2. Ms. Hanson?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking and I was muted.
That's all right, no
I
problem.
had called on Miss Hanson and I'm sorry, Miss Bowler, and unmuted her.
Okay, so let's go to Ms. Bowler then.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are, ma'am. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I don't want to feel like I'm part of a chorus, but I've just been thinking, well, the tree is there and they don't have to have a driveway. They don't have to have a garage. They have the house that they have, and that's how it is. And the reason it seems so clear to me is that I've been made aware lately about indigenous rights. And it's made me think about colonizing. And a colonist and the settlers had the feeling that they could just come and do things that they want because they can. And we've now reached a point with our civilization or our structure that doesn't really allow for that mindset. And it's clear we do need the trees, and it's not essential to that homeowner to change the property from the way it was when they got it. That sort of says it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Bowler. Now, Ms. Hanson.
There we go. Am I there?
Yes, you are.
Okay, hello. Thank you for acknowledging me. I too just wanted to put in a word for the trees and the value of the trees. And a lot of other people have made these comments. But again, we keep as a civilization marching towards this beat that the world must bend to the people. And we see where our climate is in crisis. And we are not going to be the beneficiaries of what we are doing to our planet. We need to get aligned, and we need to change our thinking a little bit if we're going to continue to thrive as a species at all. And I appreciate that these people want to build their house, whatever of their dreams, an expanded property. I believe they're also diminishing the backyard, so a little more space for the planet, which includes runoff, climate control, all those things is going to be forfeited. And I would just like to vote for people considering the world, considering the earth, considering the good of the bigger picture in their plans. And there's still amazing things that can be done, and architects are talented. And I think given the opportunity, they might come up with something even better. So I just wanted to vote for the trees.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Hanson. Mr. Nolte?
Yes, this is Michael Nulty, N-U-L-T-Y. And yeah, there are certain neighborhoods, and this is one of them, where there is a low population of trees, and there needs to be some way of equalizing that and making sure that the trees, one, stay, two, even more be planted. And you know, I appreciate the architect trying to mitigate some damages, but I think he's just trying to do his project in the long run, and still be, you know, able to do it, what he set as his plans. So, you know, the thing is that once a tree is taken root, it's calling it its home. And the tree has been there for some time. That's its home. And, who has the right to knock it down? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Nolberg. So at this point, we'll go, I don't see any members of the public that are willing or not willing, interested in speaking on this matter. So we'll go back to Mr. Damalanta and Ms. Nawberry. And it seems to me that if there's any agreement to remove or replace or relocate the tree, that it would still be subject to appeal by the public. So at this point,
Can I clarify a couple of things, Mr. Goldberg?
Sure, absolutely.
So, I just want to make clear, this home is 45 years old, has been very neglected. The couple that bought this home are San Francisco natives, born, gone to school here, went off to college, came back to San Francisco. The parents live a block away. They love the neighborhood. They targeted this neighborhood. And so this is not the case where I've heard someone say developer and things like that. It's they live 2 blocks away. So
thank you, Mr. So we're just going to focus on the tree. So I think we've heard as much, and so at this point, I'll just make my recommendation to the director and or the interim director, and she can follow up.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So if there's nothing else, I think that concludes our hearing for the evening. So I just want to thank everyone for their time and attention. Ms. Nawberry, I thank you for representing the department. Cerise, I appreciate your work in the background, keeping things going. So with that, I wish everyone a good, Mr. Feldman, you already spoke. So if you want to submit something, you can submit it, but you get one bite at the apple. So.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good night.
Oh, he said he just wanted to say thank you.
Oh. To everyone. That's good.